Now, the host of RN Breakfast, Patricia Karvelas, joins us to talk federal politics. PK, g'day. So the government has flagged they'll make announcements on Friday after the job summit. We've got this big job summit happening tomorrow and on Friday. The guest list for that has been revealed. There are expectations about what will be achieved, but the government is trying to manage those expectations.
Yeah, expectation management is key for governments ahead of something big like this. A lot of anticipation that it will be kind of a silver bullet to our many economic woes. It clearly won't be, but I think it is an important moment. Now, the opposition still continues to say that it's a talk fest, essentially a waste of time. Peter Dutton suggesting that the government's gone in with predetermined outcomes before it even enters the process. I think what it has done is galvanised everyone around organising themselves around this moment. It won't solve all the problems, but if it can accelerate some movement towards consensus, then it can't be a bad thing. And can I just say, this idea of talk fest, that talking is kind of somehow inherently bad. I think more talking and less arguing, but actually constructive talking is what this nation needs increasingly. A couple of things we do know is that on some of those industrial relations reforms that are on the table, the Better Off Overall test that I talked about yesterday, the government saying that it's willing to move on. The coalition today, the Liberal opposition basically saying that they're happy perhaps to support some of these changes. That would give the government a passage through the Senate, because the Greens have indicated, and it's a very populist position, that any changes to the Better Off Overall test they're unlikely to support. Now, it's as I was explaining yesterday for anyone who watches our conversation.
It's very have an issue with some of the unions have an issue with the test.
Yeah, because it's so explicitly and literally understood as better off overruling every single part of the agreement, and it doesn't give much. There's not basically a broader application that means that you can have different elements in an agreement which can be negotiated between a boss and a worker. So that's an interesting development. There's another development I think is interesting, and the opposition knew in their oppositionhood, just tried that out in their opposition life, raised at the start that they would like to see pensioners, for instance, keep more of their money if they want to work more, to get more workers in the workforce. What we know on that issue is that the government said they're willing to move on that. Now, that's a lot of people said at the time, actually, why didn't they do it in government? Well, there have often been proposals to do this. It's one of those common sense things. It's just it costs. It is clearly really obvious that if you can keep more of your pension, any government benefits, and increase your hours of work, that is an obviously easy and important reform to get more people working more hours, not just working, but actually more hours. There's another proposal out today that I think is interesting. I think if you saw the response, for instance, from Annika Wells this morning, one of the government ministers, a bit of a lukewarm response, that's for sure, but Paul Zara, who heads up the retailers, arguing that young people as young as 13 should be able to work in uniform laws across the country to deal with our shortages of workers. That's a pretty controversial idea. But this summit that starts tomorrow and is for the next 2 days, it is going to be important. Premier's invited as well. And I think we won't see kind of everything resolved, but the government telling us on Friday they will be making some announcements. You'd think, though, Joe, they have pretty strong idea about where they'll go. And one thing I will tell you, migration. It will increase. There is no doubt about it that they'll walk out with basically more workers coming to this country, because we are in desperate need of workers. And after the last couple of years where we didn't let people through the door, there will have to be an open door to try and change the makeup of, I think, Australian workplaces, but also Australia.
Yeah, that does seem a certainty. And I'll be chatting to someone from the Committee for the Economic Development of Australia in the next half hour or so on that. We'll have to leave it there. Thanks a lot, Patricia.
See you, bye.